Good afternoon and welcome to the Roundtable, a special interview press event with the Prime Minister of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, where he engages in dialogue with media associations, with the media association, members of the media association. We have various representatives here with us from the Observer, Mr. LaShawn Dixon. We have Mr. Kailoni Johnson from SKNIS, Mr. Kevon Brown of WinFM, Mr. Glenn Bass from SKN Newsline, and Ms. Mervyn Thompson from ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. The roundtable is currently being carried live on several platforms on YouTube at PMO SKN, ZIZ Online, and SKNIS, and on radio at Von Radio, ZIZ Radio, Freedom FM, and Win FM. It's also being carried live on television at ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation, TVC Channel 40 on the cable in St. Kitts and Nevis, and TVC and Tel TV cable network in St. Martin. Thank you very much for tuning in. We do apologize for our late start, but we are ready to get the ball rolling. The Prime Minister is here and eager to engage in conversation with the media. At this point, I'll pass it over to the Prime Minister, who will give his opening statement before addressing the media.
Thank you very much, Madam Press Secretary. I want to welcome you from the different media houses and to also welcome our citizens and residents who are joining us here at this roundtable. I want to welcome you once again. This roundtable is really to have a conversation with persons from the media so that we can bring out a lot of very important issues of national interest. Before we get into it, just allow me a few minutes to speak to a number of critical matters with you, the public. From the Ministry of Health standpoint, we have now someone in place, the Medical Chief of Staff, who is Dr. David Wilkin, who is an anesthesiologist by training, a specialist at the Genève France Hospital, and who would have had subsequent postgraduate training in the healthcare field. I want to thank her really for accepting this role, for such a very humongous task in leading the medical workforce there at the Genève Hospital. I want to wish her all the best and all the success. Her success is the success of the healthcare system and the success of our patients. I also want to say thanks to Dr. Wilkinson, who retired, who would have been the Medical Chief of Staff for a number of years as well, and wish him all the best as he endeavored to do new things. Just to update the country, there were a number of nurses who studied in Cuba. When they returned in 2013, a few of them were given the opportunity to be registered nurses, and then that decision was rescinded and they became assistant nurses. For the last decade or so, the nurses who studied in Cuba were denied the opportunity to become registered nurses. When you had nurses from Cuba with the same degree who were accepted as registered nurses here in St. Kitts and Nevis, while they were accepted, our own citizens who studied in Cuba were not accepted. And so recently, the Nursing Council, the new Nursing Council, took a look at the matter and they deemed that it was the right thing to get the Cuban, our citizens who graduated from the nursing programs in Cuba to be registered nurses. So I want to congratulate all the nurses thus far who have been given their rightful place in the health sector and are now registered nurses here in St. Kitts and Nevis. That injustice went on for too long. And I said that if that had not been corrected, the nurses were in a position, and even the government, to bring in a class action suit against the Nursing Council for discrimination. One group that has the exact same degree and qualifications are accepted and registered, while the other group is being told that they cannot be registered. And so that injustice over the last decade has been corrected. And so I want to congratulate these nurses and their new positions, their well-deserved positions. And so to put it in simple terms that we understand, they are now out of the striped uniform and now in the white uniform with the red belt. I also want to say that with respect to the MRI, the tendering process for the housing of the MRI is coming to an end so that we can start its construction of a special housing and have the MRI placed there. So that is to commence within the next few weeks. And so we'll have an MRI at the JNF compound and one at the new hospital when it is completed. So there will be two MRIs, at least within the public system. But in short order, we should have the MRI at JNF Hospital. I want to also say that in terms of nursing, we provided scholarships to nurses to go and become specialists. Thus far, 2 nurses have taken up the opportunity to pursue specialties in Jamaica in ICU care. We don't have any ICU care specialist nurses here. And so the thrust is that we create as much specialist nurses as possible, really to improve the care here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I want to really congratulate the nurses who have taken up the opportunity to become specialists. We have also created 6 new positions for nursing managers, strengthening the administrative arm of the nursing deliverance of care at the JNF Hospital so that, people can have the best outcome possible. I want to touch also on the issue of water in Keon. As you know, this issue of water in Keon has been going on for many, many years, possibly decades. There were attempts, of course, to deal with the matter, but the matter continues to be an issue because there's expansion, there are houses, more demand, and as a result of that, water continues to be an issue. However, recently, as you know, after 7 years of pause by the previous administration, we restarted the drilling process in Keon, and water has been found at a depth of about 516 feet, about 700,000 to 1 million gallons per day of water has been found. They're now in the process of doing what you call the 72-hour test, but that require a certain size piping which does not exist here in St. Kitts, which we do not have here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and therefore that is being sought. That is on its way to St. Kitts already to be a part of building out the infrastructure of the well in Keon, which would provide between 700 to 1 million gallons. Let me put a caveat on that. So far, the preliminary testing has shown that the water is potable or portable, and that water, when potable, means it is drinking water, right? It's drinkable in other terms. And we now going into the more in-depth testing, and once that is cleared, the process will start to connect that well to the general water delivery system. And so, thus far, it is looking good. And that is really to bring an end to the woes of water shortage in Keon that has been going on for decades. And I'm happy that this administration has been able to deal with this situation head on and now is moving to bring relief to the people of Keon. The reason why the problem in Keon is so acute is because we are going through a drought. As you know, climate change is now upon us. It is hitting us hard. We have decreased rainfall, and as a result, we have decreased storage, and therefore people are not getting the water that they might have had in previous years. So climate change is what is beating us. However, I still hold that this was partly a man-made situation. How can you have a whole 7 years and not the opportunity to explore new water sources? Nothing, absolutely nothing was done to deliver 1 extra gallon of water to our water system. And therefore, we have corrected that. We also have at the Marriott the expansion of their desalination plant. By the end of this month, or early next month, which is today, we are in right now the period where we'll upgrade that to deliver another 400,000 gallons of water to our water system here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And in addition to that, the cabinet has sanctioned the construction of a 2 million gallon desalination plant to also aid in dealing with the water shortages. So we are dealing with this issue from multiple perspectives. And then we look also at the water harvesting aspect of it, where people can harvest water into storage areas, whether it be cistern or storage tanks, so that we can have that water be used as part of our delivery system here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Let me say that the drop in rainfall can continue, and that means that even rainfall harvesting will have its limitations. So we have to do as much as we can to conserve water while the government works to deliver more water to the people. The other matter is the matter of education. Let me update you, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, that the $250 per child initiative, there was a glitch in terms of the IT solutions to this matter. That matter has been resolved, which means, so it's $250 per child, not $250 per household. So maybe a day or two ago, when you applied and you put three children's name in, you will get back just for one child. They have resolved that. And so you can call the number that is provided, and I'll say what the number is later on, but just to say that the situation has now been resolved and each child will be given the benefit of the Back to School initiative. With respect to private schools, it's on a need basis that they can apply, and that is done through the Ministry of Education in collaboration with the school as well. As I said earlier, the preschools, they get a subvention from the government, those who are in private preschool. The subvention used to be $25. We have now increased that to $50. So any child who is in preschool, daycare, or what we call the crèche, really the nursery, they too will benefit from the subvention if they're in a private school. So let's say you take them to a private daycare or preschool and the cost is $75. The parent will only have to pay $25 now instead of $50, which was previous. So you'll have a $50 benefit per child in nursery and in preschool. So we have done that. I also want to say that we have extended economic cost to all students who travel to study at the University of the West Indies. We have also made college free for our tuition free for all of our students. And with that, I want to congratulate all the students who did their CXC and were successful. I'd like to also congratulate my own son. He did CXC among among the hundreds of other children here in the Federation. So I want to congratulate them. There was an uptick overall and success in terms of subject passes, and I want to congratulate the parents for doing the excellent job they have been doing, and to congratulate the teachers, and to say to the Minister of Education, job well done by your ministry. And so I want to say to all of our young people, you have educational opportunities. You need to take advantage of them. From the time you are born up to the university level, you are given opportunities. We also had an increase in the scholarships to the Republic of China, Taiwan. Plus we had other scholarships. Yesterday we had one that's from the Ministry of Sustainable Development, where a number of persons benefited from scholarships for advanced training and postgraduate training. We have increased the number from other jurisdictions, and therefore I think that the help when it comes to opportunity to higher education is definitely there, and we have strengthened that by reversing one of the things that was put in place where medicine and law could not, they were not benefiting from the economic cost benefit. So it means, therefore, that if you go to University of the West Indies to do medicine, you would not have had your economic costs paid under the previous administration. If you go to do law, you would not have had your economic costs paid by the previous administration. We have reversed that, or we have implemented, rather, economic costs for all professions. If you don't do that, then it means that persons who come from families of, that are strapped for cash or financial resources, they are least likely to pursue careers in medicine and law. And in St. Kitts and Nevis, the only determining factor should be your capacity and your willingness to complete these courses. So we have removed the barrier, because the economic cost save you tens of thousands of dollars. Just to remind students that the loans at Development Bank are at 5%, the lowest overall ever. We have carried the loans from 9% to 5%, new loans and existing loans. And we have also taken the decision that while you are studying, you do not have to pay any interest rate, and any interest rather, and all that money that accumulates over the time that you're studying in terms of interest, you are totally forgiven, meaning that you will save about $15,000. And then when you decrease the interest rate from 9 to 5%, so that will result in significant savings. So the overall savings can be $40,000 to $50,000, maybe more. And that money you can inject into housing, into a vehicle, into a business to pay off other financial obligations that you might have. And that is to make sure that our students are not burdened and the parents are not burdened, and people don't have to move out of their houses when they are 40. And so we have put that in place. And so we wanted to complete education so that people can have access to education from the time they're born all the way up to university and beyond. And that is why we have taken this progressive step, because our people need to understand that to compete in this world, we will have to be as educated as possible. I just want to add, just recently I traveled to St. Vincent, where I toured the cannabis farms there, medicinal cannabis industry. I'm very impressed, and St. Kitts is about to embark upon this industry. We have passed the necessary legislation which has cleared the way for this industry to be set up. And so later on, Dr. Alexander will visit St. Vincent as well, and other jurisdictions as we put this industry into place. I would say he's also traveling to Southern University of the United States, which is seeking to collaborate with us to build out our cannabis industry. So that is something totally new. But before I turn it over, I want to touch a little bit on Social Security, because I started the conversation about how much money Social Security is owed by Development Bank. So I got the official figures to update our people. Now, when we look at the Development Bank consolidated loan, 4% 2019. Loan balance, $120,643,494.97. It's a little bit higher than when I spoke the first time. As of 31st July 2023, the amount owed to Social Security by Development Bank, $120,643,494.97. And the interest rate is at 4%, period of loan, 25 years. The start date, 27th March 2019. Date of final payment should be 27th March 2044. That's for mortgages. And it is security, is mortgages, and federal government guarantee. Note as to update on this loan from Social. This loan is in arrears in the amount of $9,701,946.63 at 30th August 2023. The loan was not properly serviced since April 2020. The monthly payments due on this facility is $673,642.92. Currently, monthly installments, $250,000, are made towards the loan. And let me point out that under the previous administration, the payment was completely stopped in January of 2022. Completely stopped in January of 2022, and was restarted by this administration September January 2022, September 2022, when we started to pay back $250,000 per month. So I just wanted to clear the dates on this, that this started 2019 at 4%, and the loan is in arrears of this amount, and therefore we're supposed to pay $673,000 per month. It was completely stopped being paid, and the monthly installments now under this administration is $250,000. This is a very serious matter. It means, based on what was happening, that under the previous administration, that this loan of $120 million was basically abandoned. Where was Social Security supposed to get back its money? If you take $120 million out of Social Security, it means that you're putting the fund in trouble. It means that the fund will be less solvent and less years for solvency, and you'll have to take some strict measures, because $120 million is a significant amount of money. And to have abandoned that loan and make no payments at all in the end is an egregious act against the people's funds at the Social Security. This shows that the bank was severely mismanaged, grotesquely mismanaged by the previous manager of the bank, to the point where it could not service a loan of $120 million plus. The bank, the bank, apart from owing Social Security $120 million, it owes a total of $334,833,769.34. That's over $250 million that the bank owes. The bank is in serious trouble and was left to collapse. That's basically what it's saying there. We had to immediately stabilize the situation, audit the bank, because the bank had not been audited since 2018. Before COVID, the bank had not been audited. And all the banks in St. Kitts and Nevis are financial institutions. They went through the audit during COVID. The only institution to have not been audited is the Development Bank. We have then audited the bank, and we have contacted the bank has contacted a reputable organization, Deloitte out of Barbados, to help to bring the bank back in good standing, as financial institutions have abandoned the bank because of bad banking practice and what is perceived to be corrupt practices. You cannot not audit a bank. When you don't audit a bank, you are sending a message that you are hiding things. This is an egregious act in the practice of banking. And it shows that the previous manager of the bank grossly mismanaged the bank, and under the leadership of the former prime minister. This is egregious. We have determined that Social Security must get back its money. People have put their money there, and the bank has to give back the government its money. The bank also owed the government $89,500,000. It owes the National Bank $25 million. It owes the SIDF $57 million. It owes PetroCaribe $11 million, $531,679. So we are simply saying that we have to do all that we have to do to make sure that we cover the monies owed to Social Security. Because when people retire, people must have their pension intact. And so I would stop there for now and let can have anything you want to ask with respect to what was discussed here, so we can have a deeper discussion on multiple things. It's not working, Glenn?
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for providing that update. At this point, the media houses will engage with the Prime Minister. Just want to also mention that tomorrow, September 1st, we start the National Colors Day with the color green. So that's just to inform the public that tomorrow, National Colors Day.
All right, Prime Minister Glenn Barrett from SKN Newsline. On the same issue of the Development Bank, You have made certain statements over the past few months with regards to this matter, and you've further clarified the situation today. But I was wondering if the loans that you speak of, were they to be, weren't the loans that were consolidated back in 2015 as a means for the bank to better manage its portfolio of loans going out? And then secondly, with the issue of Social Security, was the loan stopped, or was there any communication, written communication between the Development Bank and Social Security with regards to a moratorium based on the fact that COVID-19 was affecting many businesses who were having challenges paying their payments to the bank? So is it correct to say that the bank simply stopped paying Social Security, or was there a basis upon which there was a cessation in the payment to Social Security?
Right. So two things you asked that we need to clarify. It says here that the consolidation was in 2019, not 2015. 2019, yes. And I think let me just go back to it so that I want you to have that totally clarified. Development Bank statutory, right. Consolidated loan 4%, 2019. Yes. That's 4 years after that administration would have got into office, and not 2015. The other issue is, right, you spoke about that. There are other areas where there were moratorium on the principle that took place here. By the time we got there in 2020, this is why the argument that COVID was the issue. By the time we got there in August, remember this is not, you just jump from January to August, you have January, February, March. We recognized very quickly that if you were to put some good banking practices in place, you would not only be able to pay the bank $200,000, but you'll be able to pay the bank $250,000. And so we started to pay that $250,000 almost immediately. We took office in August, and by September, our first payment was not $200,000, but $250,000. So we know that had good banking practices been going on, even with the difficulty, that loan did not have to be abandoned. And we proved that by not paying the amount that was being paid previously when it was being serviced, but actually to increase the amount by $50,000 per month. So that we recognize once we got there, that if you do good banking practices, you could have serviced the loan at some level still. So those two things we recognize very quickly. All right. Yes.
On the issue, Mervyn Thompson said, Isaac. On the issue of Social Security and Development Bank, the $334 million plus that you mentioned, to whom is this money owed? Right. What are the institutions?
Right. You mean in terms of the development bank?
Yes.
I think I went through them.
So,
right. I think I mentioned them. A total owed is $334 million, and I went to Social Security, the government, National Bank, SIDF, and Petrocarib. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If this amount is owed to Social Security, and with the timeline of the payback, it should be at 2044. Correct. An actuarial report, the last one, I think, or the one just before the last one, it said that Social Security is due to be depleted by late 2030 or 2040, somewhere 2041. I remember when former Minister Hamilton mentioned that date. How does the math in that equation?
So you're correct, because it is the actual report will be based on the fact that these loans are being paid back in terms of. So if you have $120 million, which is a significant amount that is not being paid back, I show if in the actuary account, if it is to be seen that this loan will go beyond 2044, it will affect Social Security solvency because this is a significant amount of money. So the actuarial report would have to reflect that this loan was not being serviced for a lengthy period of time at all, and what is being serviced is significantly below what should be serviced in order to complete the payment at 4% in 2044. So this will have to be looked at very, very, very closely. So that is why we have taken the decision to implement good banking practices, tighten up the bank so that the bank can be able to service its loan at some level. We are $250,000 now. We are going to step it up to $300,000. We hope to get to $400,000 within next year, year and a half or so, while we are asking a reputable organization such as Deloitte to help us to structure the bank and position the bank so that the bank can become a reputable organization. Because in all of this, one of the most egregious acts, if I lend a bank money, let's say you're going through some tough times, one of the things that you must do to show that you are a transparent bank, that your bank is following good banking practices, is an audit. There is no excuse not to have an audit. And that is still, because even when we did the audit, and we will make the audit public as well, is that you see so many egregious acts within the audit report that tells you that this wasn't just a matter of COVID 2019, because the audit of COVID-19, the audit was not done since 2018. And those were the years predating COVID-19, which means that bad and poor banking practices were already being done by the development bank. Maybe that is why during COVID, the bank was in so much stress, because it went in to COVID-19 in a weak position, badly managed, to the point where they refused to do audits of the bank. And so if you are badly damaged and you are stressed, what do you think will happen? But the thing is, with all of this, it is Social Security that is really, really taking a serious hit, with $120 million consolidated in 2019 at 4% and was not being serviced in between January 2022 and August 2022. And the repayment was started in a month, just a few weeks after taking office, which is just tightening up and putting good banking practices back in place as quickly as possible to service the loan at some level.
Correct. So then there has to be a significant injection in Social Security very, very soon. And even with the talk of pension payments being raised, with it being in this position, just how are we affording these possible raising of pension payments and servicing the money that is owed?
That is a very good question and a good follow-up. We look at the actuarial report that you refer to. The actuarial report is saying to us that to remain solvent, you have to make some adjustments, either in the age or in the payment, the amount that is paid. And that will come, that has been discussed already, in the public sphere, because we had a symposium at Marriott Hotel with respect to that. And so Social Security reform is something that will be discussed, but I'll leave that to the experts and the actuarians and those who know how to make sure that the fund remains stable and strong. This fund was started in the 1970s under the leadership of our first national hero, Robert Bradshaw, and this became quickly the most important social safety net that we have in St. Kitts and Nevis. And therefore, we must do everything that we have to do to keep the fund strong and viable, so that when people retire, their money that they expect should be there and must be there.
Regarding the legislation that established the development bank, was there provision in it that speaks specifically to audits and them being regularly done? Because if so, would that then mean that there was a contravention of this law, and what would be the resulting criminal or legal charges or whatever?
Right. So the bank comes under the Banking Act, and really it's an egregious act not to have an audit. Audit has to be a part of it. Just like if you have any financial institution, you have to do an audit. Sometimes FSRC and these regulation bodies have to do it. So to not do it is a very, very serious act. And you ask the right question if the decision is one that will reach the conclusion that charges should be made or somebody should be held responsible. As I told you, we have the audit done, a forensic audit, and those decisions will be made accordingly. But for you to have a financial institution and not audit that financial institution, I would say that in the final analysis, when we get the legal advice on this, that is one of the things I'll pay attention to. Apart from that, and that is a very good question, is how can you have a financial institution without an audit? That is why we were abandoned by other financial institutions, because they were refusing to do business with us. Because you can't do it. Because if an institution does business with another institution that is not audited and following good banking practices, the institution is also affected. That affects the credibility of that institution that does business with an institution that is poorly regulated. So your question on that of course is one of the things being discussed. And I intend to bring the audit of the development bank before this year is done so that the public can see what took place. Again, I did not rush into anything. I wanted things to be done systematically. This is not a witch hunt, but one, the public must know what took place in the bank. When you don't audit a bank, and you can't account for so much money, the question is naturally asked, where has the money gone? Those are questions to be asked, and therefore those questions will be asked of the relevant people to provide the relevant answers.
Kevin Brown, WinFM. Still on Social Security, is there a timeline on when any decision will be made or brought to the public as it relates to the recommendations in the actuary reports? Could you give us a possible timeline if there is any? And as it relates to monies owed, are there any other statutory bodies that owe monies to Social Security? And do you have those figures?
Right. So there are other statutory bodies that owe Social Security. Mm-hmm. But as you can see, none of them really abandoned anything. Bat was talking about the moratorium and so forth, right? So the moratorium and principle extended to July 2024. Due to the moratorium received in June 2020, principal payments will commence August 2024. The loan is serviced monthly. So what we see from all the other institutions is that whatever arrangement they met, the loan was continuously being serviced. The one that is not being serviced was the development bank. That's the one that the loan with the development bank. That's the one, and that's one. Number is 14469, 4% 2019. Okay, right.
Good day, Lashawn Dixon, St. Steve's Observer. Same with Social Security still. Over the years,
I think I needed to answer something else from him. I think you wanted to know. I spoke to the director. I spoke to the director recently, Director Lord, and they're already putting the team in place because they're going to do public consultations to discuss with the people where Social Security is at, what needs to be done to keep it solvent. So, and I told him, remove any, I don't want that to be on the political table. Why? Let's say the actuarial report says to keep Social Security solvent, these are the actions from these reputable organizations. And then somebody comes and says, well, if you vote for me, we're not going to do that. We want to remove that. Because at the end of the day, I am still adamant that when people retire or when people are expecting a benefit, they expect the money to be there. And so there are other jurisdictions where people played politics with their fund, and their fund is in serious trouble, where they know they cannot really meet the needs of the people. Because again, instead of taking prudent steps in securing Social Security, it became an issue of political banter. Some people bought into the idea, well, I don't have to do anything with Social Security and my money going to be there, only to find out after, boy, you really had to do something. So I'm not going to get into a discussion or argument for political expediency and social security reform. I want that to be done by professionals so that they can deliver that to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, so the people can understand, not from politicians, but from those who are the specialists and experts in the field, to give us good information so that as a people we can understand why a certain decision has to be made. Not on political grounds, but on the grounds of making sure that your social security is secured. So they're already putting that team in place. So I will say within the next few months, you will definitely hear something from Social Security with respect to what are they considered reforms to have dialogue with the people. But nothing would be done without dialoguing with the people and giving the people an opportunity to have an input and to know the information so that an informed decision can be made.
Okay, Lashan Dixon, St. Kitts News Observer. Sticking with the social security theme, over the years we saw social security making significant investments. One that came to mind was Beacon Heights. How soon can we see those investments making profitable returns or returns in general to the social security, and how would they help the life of the social security in the long run?
Right, that is a very good question, because when Social Security makes investments, it is because you want to have other sources of income to keep it solvent. And so Beacon Heights was one of those things where Social Security made an investment. I cannot give the specifics at this time as to when they expect that. The Social Security has been asked to do two things. Which one there? To set up an investment unit. You must, with so much money, and you're going to invest, you need an investment unit. That's one, so that you make the right investment and let people who are experts in investment give the best advice on how you can invest to make Social Security do the right thing. And so the other thing we're going to have is a risk manager, or somebody an expert who deal with risks. You have a fund that is so that has these resources. In any other institution that has this type of funding, it would have a risk unit, a risk manager, a risk analyst to say, look, these are the risks you are facing. So we're going to implement those two things. So when you hear the upgrade in the administration of Social Security, you'll get an investment unit so that these questions can be answered. How much do I need to invest at what percentage rate to make sure that I can extend the solvency at a particular time? That's a very good question. And then the second question that must be answered is a question, is the other part that I spoke about with respect to risk. So how are you going to evaluate my risk? Does this make sense to invest in? So there will be a shift in those two things, all right?
Kailoni Johnson, SKNIS. This might be the last question on the financial side. With the state that you guys met Development Bank in, I think you mentioned a loan of $334 million. You mentioned that you guys have worked hard to stabilize the bank, but are you guys confident that Development Bank can service such a huge loan?
That's a very good question that you are asking, and I'm totally open and transparent with the answer. Development Bank would have to have conversations with the lenders, with those who they are indebted to see if they can rearrange the loans so that they can service them. And I think that those conversations have happened. The reason why I have hope in it is that we know once we get a reputable organization in to tell us how to structure the bank and allow the bank to work, it gives us hope. It will reconnect us with other funding institutions. That gives hope. Good banking practice, that gives hope. Auditing the bank and make sure we deal with any corrupt practices, that gives hope. And we have, the government itself has put money into the bank through very soft loans, such as a student loan. If you don't have student loans, where are those students going to get money from? At a commercial bank, at commercial bank rates? So that means you're going to block poor people's children from going to study? We couldn't allow that. When you come to small business, we also had to inject and give very soft small business loans. And those loans were at 2% or so, or 2 to 3%, very, very low interest with special condition, where people would have found an institution to do that for them. So the development bank is critical in our development, and it really serves to help those who would not have other options to access financing. And so I am hopeful, based on what we have done so far, we have been able to increase the amount paid to Social Security in servicing that loan. We are servicing the other loans that we have. And that has come mainly by tightening up good banking practices, eliminate the leaks that were taking place, and to start business at, once again, at development bank in terms of student loans and so forth. And with the economy coming back, more people will be able to service their loans as well. So that is going to help. So in the short term, we are doing all that we can to save the bank, but that is a very, very critical and good questions. But I'm hopeful that if we stay on the right path, and I'm asking our people to bear with us so that we can put in the good regulations so that it would give the bank the best opportunity to continue to serve the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
I just want to shift the question a little bit to water. With regards to BEAD, now, I believe under the previous administration, there was a cessation in the contract with BEAD. Can you explain what really happened, why there was a cessation, and why is it that this government has taken up that same company to continue? We don't see the linkage between those two events. Could you explain?
Right. Thank you. So let you remember that BEAD came before before 2015 elections, and BEAD had started work. They did work in Nevis. They did work here in St. Kitts as well. And they were already pursuing work here. They'd done, I think, the Shadwell well, which we know the water was not potable because they had some heavy metals in it. And they thought that they could have fixed it because these are, engineering questions that can be answered through an engineering solution. However, when the government changed in 2015, the government stopped BEAD from working. And there was an impasse for a number of years, a few years. And so BEAD, with its equipment, couldn't do anything. The equipment sat there and was not doing any work that led to deterioration and so forth. There was an effort after there was some rumbling in the last administration and a shift to see if they can get BEAD back up. But the issue was they stopped BEAD and a new company was being brought in. And if my memory serves me right, BEAD went to court with the government. There was a threat to go to court because BEAD was being asked to give up its information, and the argument was, this is our property, so we just can't hand over our information with respect to the work that we would have done in identifying water across the country, across the island, in St. Kitts in this case. And there was an attempt made just before the last elections to see, man, look, let's get together and see how quickly we can get something done, when the whole thing would have stopped about 5 years. And about 5 or more years. So when we got in, as I said on the platform, that we will speak with BEAD almost immediately. Election gone, right away to work, calling BEAD. Let's get this thing going. Mr. Isaac Rowell is a Keonite who lives in Nevis. And so he is associated with BEAD and has personal interest as well, because Keon is his community. I tell him, look, let's get this thing going. And so BEAD started to, repair their machinery, the equipment and so forth, because there had been some deterioration having been there, just doing nothing. And so that is when we had some delay. So the equipment had to be repaired, be brought from Nevis, came over to Keon, more work to be done. And then you had to get the professionals in, because these professionals work around the world. And then finally, you got the opportunity when the machine is working and the professionals are now free to come in. And that's when the drilling started. And in short order, very quick order, 516 feet, and they found water that is initially potable water. So we're hoping after the 72-hour test will take place over the next few weeks, that test would also show that. So that is what happened with BEAD. It was stopped by the previous government. The equipment was here on Nevis. We engaged BEAD immediately. BEAD got the equipment back up, and they had already identified the site. So they did not have to do that work again. Went straight to work, and they found water in quick order. As a matter of fact, they found twice as much as expected. They found between 700,000 and 1 million gallons per day of water, where the World Health Organization preliminary testing for potable water is very, very favorable at this point in time. And once the 72-hour test is favorable, the well will be developed and that water will be channeled into the water delivery system here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
But why exactly did the previous government stop BEAD from operating? That's what I'm trying to get clear.
So, from my understanding and in having my discussions, the previous minister with responsible for water did not want BEAD to continue. He had an idea of another company in mind. That is from my understanding in discussing, and another company actually approached as well. You know, sometimes one company working under one administration changes. You say, well, you know, we can't work with this company, we have to get a new company. But for all that time, not even 1 gallon of water added to the systems here in St. Kitts. I think that was an egregious act. So now, this issue of drought and lack of water in St. Peter's and Keon is a man-made issue as well. Not that climate change is man-made, I'm not talking about that perspective. Even if you have climate change, which we have, and droughts, which we expected, that is why a plan was put in place. Look, let's find water. Climate change is happening. Droughts are coming. The country is expanding. Let's find water. So what is happening in Keon is because, and I have to put it at the feet of the former administration, nothing done. No desalination, no expansion of desalination, no drilling done, nothing done to add an extra gallon of water to our sources. So now that climate change is upon us, and now that we have these droughts, what do we expect? People in Keon without water. And this government in less than a year has done more than what they would have done in 7 years, which is zero, nothing, nada. But in 1 year, we got BEAD to work. And even outside of BEAD, we have 2 other solutions. Expand desalination at Marriott, up to 400,000 or 500,000 gallons per day. And we have now secured our funding for a new desalination plant to produce 2 million gallons per day. We are serious when we say we want to eliminate water shortages in St. Kitts and Nevis. This is very serious, just like what we did for the electricity. When we came in, electricity used to go out. I'm not talking about maintenance, I'm talking about load shedding. We even forget the vocabulary. I think that is what they used to call it. Load shedding means we're not generating enough electricity, so St. Paul's no electricity for you today. Monkey Hill you're going to get. Okay, Monkey Hill you cut off so Village could get. Village you cut off for Phillips's to get. That is how we used to live. Water and electricity, and we called ourselves a high-income country, which means that we were not using our money for basic amenities. The money was being used for everything else, but water and electricity were being left. So you have people now not having access to water 24/7 and couldn't have access to electricity 24/7. That was hampering people's quality of life and also hampering development. That's why we took the decision. We bought new generators, and we had a generator there that was sent to France. We made a decision very soon after the elections because we decided people in St. Kitts should not be having issues with load shedding. They repaired the generator, and now the generator thing, I think is a 6 megawatt, which is a humongous generator, plus the others that we would have bought, and that is how we ended the load shedding that we were experiencing. Those things had become a normal part of life. Oh, you don't have any electricity tonight, cool, the place hot, fan yourself with something. You know, you can't put on your fan. No water there, no water there. And therefore, these are not just climate issues. These are also compounded by bad administration and not prioritizing the right thing. Can you imagine if we did not go to Marriott or start digging with BEAD, what the people are experiencing in Keon and St. Peter's? There will be no hope, because the truth is 7 years and not at one extra gallon. 7 years and still having our people going through load shedding. These are basic things. If the first thing people ask when you go to a country, you have water, you have electricity, and then they might ask about internet after. Or they might ask internet first because they expect you to have water and electricity. But those two things, we have decided we will invest the money, and we have invested millions of dollars so that our people can have access to water and our people can have access to energy. And it should not be on a scheduled basis. We should have access all the time. However, with that, I will say to our people, let's practice conservation. Turn off your light, plug out your stuff. Because at the end of the day, we are subsidizing fossil fuel even though we are seeking to transition into renewable. Turn off your water. If your toilet leaking, get it fixed. You know how much gallons you lose? Don't brush your teeth and have the water running. You turn it, as we say in St. Kitts, and you brush your teeth with the tap off. You go in the bath, don't waste the water. Conserve the water as much as possible. Try not to wash down your vehicle with a hose. Use a bucket of water and a cloth and wipe it off. All those things will help us to save water. So I want us to practice good water conservation, and at the same time, I want us to be able to have access to the water.
One quick thing. In relation to the PAP program, I met someone recently who expressed a concern. And apparently that person was on the PAP, but was removed. That person, I understand, has a child with a disability. And the explanation that was given to her was that she was $100 over the limit. I think it was, it's $3,000 per household or something to that effect. But she was removed because of that. Two things. One, was any compassionate consideration given when the program was being reviewed to situations like that? Because apparently there are a few others that I'm kind of aware of along those kind of lines. And secondly, for such persons, is there an alternative way for them to get some assistance, because things are fairly difficult for them?
Right. And that's a very good question. I would add again. Let me first say that we continue the PAP. Because of the financial situation of the country, how we met it, we were being advised to cut these safety net programs. Because remember, the government had them, but the government was in deficit. The government couldn't service its loans, such as the Development Bank and Social Security and so forth. So we know that what was actually happening was a Ponzi scheme in terms of having these things. Let me tell you how a Ponzi scheme works. A Ponzi scheme is set up to make a man look like he has all the money in the world. Because he can take from here, take from there, take from there. It's only when the bottom drops out that you realize it was a Ponzi scheme. And so what we recognized, we were running deficits. What we recognized, our economy had become significantly dependent on the CBI program up to 70%. And in addition to that, we saw that the government in other areas was borrowing money from all over. Borrowing money, through different means. So therefore, you created this scenario, and it was also used as a political tool that during the last election, people were going around just sign up for the PAP, sign up for the PAP. And then you took the PAP up to a level where you know that the country could not afford it because you were running deficits. How would you have done that? By borrowing from Social Security and not paying back? By weakening Development Bank? By borrowing left, right, and center? By depending so much on one program, the CBI program? So the fiscal situation in St. Kitts and Nevis, in my estimation, was being run like a Ponzi scheme, knowing that they were doing this for political favors without having solid financial backing. And so we encountered that. And so we have said, we cannot end the program. Right now, we are setting up to introduce the program that we spoke about. They're going to be similar to the MEND program, which is a program to really help to lift people out of poverty. Because right now, you have over 5,500 people on the PAP. And if you look at the cost for the PAP yearly, clearly the country will be in a deep situation where it cannot continue that. But we have taken the decision that we need to protect our people, especially because of post-COVID. So we say we will take a hit with respect to that. So I wanted to put in perspective that we are doing everything to service the persons on the PAP, especially during the post-COVID. That's the first one, where we have over 5,500 people on the PAP. Now, the other thing is we have a disability program here in St. Kitts. The most people who benefited from the PAP were disabled people and the elderly, as they are the ones who most likely would be in poverty. So I wanted to put that forward. The second thing is we have a disabled program, where if you have a disabled child, your disabled child can go to McKnight community, be engaged in a program, and be paid to be in the program. So what I would ask you to ask that mother, have you heard about the alternative program where people who are disabled can go to the McKnight community and become part of that community and be engaged in activities that can help their own situation? That is the question that I would ask, because I'm almost certain that that can be an alternative. And I would say to that mother, if that child is not in that program, please, if the child is eligible for that program, get the child in that program. But apart from this program, there are many other social safety net opportunities for people to be a part of. One, part of what we are subsidizing now is electricity to the tune of about $9 million per month. Significant amount of money to keep the electricity on. We are also subsidizing water. We have not cut that. We are subsidizing gas. Your tanker gas, your small tank and your big tank is still $30. We are subsidizing gas that you go to the pump. Each gallon you buy, the government is helping you with $2.25. This government is helping you with $2.25 for each gallon you buy. Before, it was just 95 cents. That's a subsidy. We have also given concessions and so many things, more VAT days, concessions on school supplies. We have also sought to decrease the VAT on freights and so forth, freight so that you can deal with the cost of food. But the food that is going up, you buy it from source, and there's still some inflation in North America, where a lot of the food comes from. Just the base cost of the food. That has nothing to do with the taxes. And we are monitoring that to see how much we can continue to take them, which means the government tax base will become much less. So the government will be faced with a problem. Smaller tax base, but have to deliver a lot of social services. And therefore, there's a mismatch. So we have to balance that very carefully. These are the things that the government is subsidizing. We came up with the program of the $250 for each child who is in primary school or high school, public school, and if you're in private school, you kind of go to the Ministry of Education or go to your school if you need that extra help at this point in time. Each child who goes to school, we are increasing the subvention from $25 to $50. All these type of programs that we have, and anybody who look at it will say, we are spending significant amount. Between 25 to 30% of the budget is spent on social safety net. Over 25%, I'm sure. 25 to 30%. And that is to make sure people have water, electricity. They can send their children to school. They can eat, basic food. I know there's an issue with, the electricity costs and so forth, but we have tempered that by taking the hit and making sure that it does not go up too high. So down to the very gas you pump into the car, we are subsidizing. So we are subsidizing a lot of things. We started the fund for children. Any child who gets sick, we are paying the full cost if they have to go overseas, if the parents can't afford it, so that the child can have these expensive advanced surgeries and have a chance for living. And we have saved a number of children through those means. So we continue to subsidize on all levels: education, healthcare, energy cost. And we can also talk about the food voucher program, which we have expanded, the school uniform program, which we also have in place. So as you can see, the government is doing a lot. But for that mother with a disabled child, tell the mother there's an alternative, which we really want. We don't want disabled children to stay home. The days gone when you lock down your disabled child in the house. That is abuse. I'm not saying this mother is doing that, but that is abuse. We want the disabled children to come out and to be able to go, not just children, because there are adults there as well, and be able to go to a center, to a program where that program can help them to develop as far as possible as those who are not considered to be disabled. We are seeking to eliminate barriers on the mental health issue, on physical, whatever the impairment is. You eliminate the barrier, and that person can have an opportunity to participate in the society fuller. And therefore, that is another thing that we are making sure that we do. We create this opportunity for persons with disability, and they are given the opportunity to earn a living or have some sort of income as well. So go to the McKnight Center and investigate it. You can speak to the persons there and say, how is this disabled program run? How are the people being remunerated? Or what stipend are they being given? How is this helping? So people can know that they have alternatives as if they have a child. And look at this. For the PAP, you get $500 a month. You take the disabled child to the center, and that child gets a minimum wage, which is what, twice as much or 2.5 times as much. Because there was a case of a mother calling in and said the child came off the PAP and so forth, and when it was investigated by the Minister of Social Services, is that the child is being offered to go to the center where they can make 2.5 times as much. And it's also better for the child in terms of having a better opportunity. So I will say that, all right.
Okay, just to touch back on the water, as a resident of Cairn, myself, have any of the experts expressed concern regarding contamination or potential contamination for the well that was just recently drilled? And do you have any assurances to the people of Cairn that if this doesn't work out, what's the next steps? And if it does work out, what protections will be put in place to protect this water source, considering there's residential houses close by, a school close by, and a gas station, and accidents do happen. So what protections will be in place to ensure that this source is not contaminated?
Right, just like what protection we have in place to make sure no source is contaminated. And St. Kitts has had a very good track record. As a matter of fact, St. Kitts has one of the best tap waters. When they test St. Kitts tap water is of high quality, that I would say. So St. Kitts has a program of testing the water to make sure that the water is potable. That is part of the remit of the water department, and that department has been doing a very good job at that. And therefore, this will be subjected to those rules and regulations as well. So I don't have any fear, because we have shown with an excellent track record that we know how to monitor and how to deliver potable water to our people. Let's say the well doesn't work out. I mentioned 2 other programs we have, which is a desalination program, which is going on now at Marriott to expand it to 500,000 gallons. But remember, I also said we have already, the cabinet has already committed to building a 2 million gallon desalination plant. So that water would enter into the system. And of course, Cairn will also benefit. Because let's say you have a source in Cairn and you're diverting water to someplace, you don't have to divert it. That water stays there, and therefore Cairn would have enough water. So that is not our only solution. That is why we have a backup solution. So I want the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to know, and of Cairn to know that we have solution. So far, we have been sending for non-potable fire truck. Then we have the water trucks that go. For the last 3 days, the pump was working. The pump blew out. I went and visited the pump down in Atlas. It was repaired, and I'm sure you probably had water either last night or this morning, depending on where. Where in Cairn do you live? Okay. Right. Which part? White. Yeah. So you're not reached as far as Cerebral, and so you had water, correct? Yes. Yes, I'm very sure. And that is because what we did is that we put in a new system to pump the water down in Atlas and pump the water up. And so that is resolving. So we're hoping that by this afternoon, Sarah, what we'll be able to get. But it comes down to, again, rainfall. If we get rain, we have no issue. But if the drought continues, we will have issue. But we have committed that the water trucks, we have engaged private water trucks, public water trucks, and the fire truck. And I'm sure you see the fire truck moving through Kayon, the water trucks moving through Kayon, because we are determined to deliver water to the people of Kayon, a place that is severely affected. And you would know that this is not, Kayon has always had water issues, but is acutely affected because, one, it's expanding, but most importantly, climate change. And the other thing is, no new development in terms of delivering water was done over the last years so that Kayon could have extra water. And so everything, the perfect storm has happened in Kayon that was being talked about for years when climate change. You have climate change, expansion, and no new developments. So that's the perfect storm of no water. It just happened during my first year. And so I have to really work hard now with a competent team to resolve the water. But that is where we're at. So I want the people of Kayon to know that even if the well does not work out as it should, we still have 2 other backup plans which will benefit the people of Kayon. Because our aim is to deliver 24/7 water to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Allow me to shift a bit to healthcare. You mentioned the situation of the nurses who are now recognized as registered nurses. Has anything been put in place to ensure that this does not happen again to any deserving nurse? And also, recently training was held for staff of the dialysis unit. Can you comment on how this training went and how has the services there been improved since?
Very question. I'll answer the last one. At the dialysis unit, dialysis is a renal replacement type of treatment modality, which means your kidney is not working and you need the job of the kidney to be done, even though you don't have kidneys. And so the dialysis machine is like an external kidney that cleans the blood. That was started in 2013 under the previous Labour administration, under the leadership of the Honorable Marcella Liebert, who was the Minister of Health then. The unit, of course, continues to expand. And so recently what happened, there were only about 4 machines working. So people had to be going up at 12 o'clock in the night and late hours to get dialysis. The nurses were overworked as well. And so we sought to get some dialysis machine from an institution in Canada which donated the dialysis machine. Because the problem was not the machine. The problem was the bloodline. Because you can have the machine, but the bloodline is what is connected, into your vein and artery to take the blood out and bring it back. Go through the machine and bring it back. And so there was a national by the name of Mr. Leo Estridge. Mr. Leo Estridge is from here. His specialty is dialysis machines and dialysis. He's a technician, high quality. So he said, look, we can send you the machines, because the machines are not the problem. There were people talking about machines, this. People don't understand. The machines will work. The issue is with the bloodline now. How can you have a good constant supply? And what he said to us, if you have these machines, then we can easily source the bloodline for you, because we were running out of bloodlines from time to time. And so we speak to him. He wanted to contribute as someone from the diaspora, because we are engaging our persons in the diaspora. He put a professional team from Canada together of 4, himself and 3 others, who said, all we want is a flight and a place to stay. You don't have to pay us. Totally voluntary. They came down, and so they trained our people in the dialysis unit. Today we have 8 dialysis machines working, which means less stress on each machine, less stress on the patient, less stress on the nurses, and less stress on the institution. And I want to thank them for their significant contribution to the dialysis unit. And that is where we are right now. We have 1 nephrologist, that's a doctor who deals with kidney from Cuba. We are now getting a 2nd doctor, so we want 2 nephrologists. And we are getting ready to launch our renal transplant program, because we have a number of young people. Our renal, Dr. Hakim from the UK was here. He's from the Cleveland Clinic UK and Imperial College UK. He's at both institutions. And he has come to help us to implement a renal transplant program so that the young people who are on dialysis can have the option of a transplant. They might have a brother who would give them a kidney, a sister, a friend, a family member who might give them a kidney so they can have a better life. So I, as a medical doctor, could not stand there and see dialysis as the only option. I said, no. And within a year, we have already put the infrastructure together to roll out a renal transplant program. That is how serious we are. So yes, because we have more machines, better training and so forth, we are seeing the benefit to all who are involved. The other one with respect to the nurses, the Nursing Council has taken the decision that these nurses have the requisite qualification to practice as nurses. They are being registered, and therefore someone would have to come after and totally take it away from them. I don't know how that would happen, but as far as the council now saying that they have the requisite training and qualifications to practice as registered nurses, that is in place. Somebody would have to go back. It's not by policy. They have it by policy, but the nursing council can take different decisions based on whatever the criteria is. So that is as far as we can do. Right now, we have a nursing council that looked at this and decided that they had to correct the injustice. Each of these nurses, just to tell you, each of these nurses would have lost about $150,000 of wealth over the last decade. Because if you look at the difference between the salary of, this is why this is such an egregious act. And I hear thinking about it, I think the government should consider giving them some sort of compensation. The government is not obligated to, but I think something should be considered because, let me say this, the difference between the pay of a registered nurse and an assistant nurse, let's say, is around $1,000. 1,000 times 12, it could be more than that. It's $12,000. 12,000 times 10, minimum $120,000. Plus loss of opportunity for advanced training, loss of opportunity for increment and increased salaries. I mean, there's a significant amount of money. So you're easily talking about $150,000. $150,000 could buy a small house, could pay off all the debt. That is what they lost because of a decision like this. That is why I think the nurses, but apart from that, the professional embarrassment, the humiliation, to see somebody come from Cuba who studied at the same university, is their boss, and they got the same qualifications. The only difference is you're born in Cuba and I'm born in St. Kitts. That was the only difference. You're born in Cuba and I'm born in St. Kitts. And therefore, if you're born in Cuba, you're given special privileges. I'm born in St. Kitts, so I have to take what I get. And so we corrected that. So it is not only emotional, professional, but also in terms of the wealth over their lifetime. They have lost at least, at the very, 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 very minimum, $120,000. That's a lot of money.
All right, switching to regional travel. I know the OECS leaders are expected to meet shortly to discuss with the CDB what to do with LIAT. So essentially, I'm asking, what's the government's position on that? Will they throw their support behind LIAT? And can we get a comment on some of the regional issues that we've seen happening as it relates to inter-Caribbean and Caribbean airlines and connection issues?
That's a very good question. You know, when we got into office, there was hardly any regional travel. LIAT had disappeared and very little intra-regional travel, and St. Kitts had been hit significantly. And so we took the decision, and if you remember when I spoke in Bahamas at my first heads of government of CARICOM leaders, I said that intra-regional travel has to be a priority, and St. Kitts and Nevis will go alone if we have to. The reason for that, our second largest source of tourists into the Federation comes from the region. So it's not even a question for us. It was necessary for us to make the investment because the return would be so much more significant. And so we decided, so we made that the MRG with Inter-Caribbean, which has been serving. There have been issues I know they just bought a new ATR, a new plane, seeking to resolve the issues, but I can't pretend that they're not issues. But going from zero to something, there was some improvement. However, we want improved service. Then Caribbean Airlines came into the play, and they just had the inaugural flight here. Liat still flies here, Air Anguilla and others fly. So we have increased intra-regional travel thus far. When it comes, I will say the position of St. Kitts and Nevis is that we want to find a solution right now for intra-regional travel. So at the last CDB meeting, we decided that we wanted this situation to be studied. Recently, I traveled to have a discussion where the discussion went as far as getting a new airline to be totally open and transparent. A new airline. We about four of us as prime ministers met. And we put together a technical team, and we're talking about what can we do this very November. The question of late has arisen, and we should address the question of late. So we are meeting again to discuss it. I'm the chair for the OECS Authority. As you know, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves is the one who had been speaking with inter-regional travel. But as the chair, I am pushing that issue very vigorously and seriously. And so we have another meeting coming up. I think we might meet virtually, because we just recently met in person, so that we can say to the people of the region that we have solved the issue, or we are going to solve the issue of intra-regional travel, even if it means to get a new airline, which is not off the table at all. It is very much on the table. So we are open to all the discussion, but I will say that the old arguments of late, I am not entertaining that. When somebody from St. Kitts wants to go down to Barbados and they can't get there, they're not thinking about the old arguments of late. They're thinking about what is the solution. And so we have to deliver a solution to the people of the region. And so we have made certain determinations. We will have that discussion as well. But I will also add, we want to thank Liat, because as much as we used to say, leave Ireland anytime and all these things, when Liat disappeared, all of us felt it. Liat served us well. It did well. But we have to now look for the best solution at this particular time. And everything, of course, is on the table. But this matter needs to be resolved. And I'm going to push it as the chair of the OECS. I will not allow this matter to rest.
Mr. PM, I know we have one last question. However, I can't sit here and not speak to other issues that the public bombards us as journalists with. So when you get some time, hopefully, how is the 250 back-to-school voucher being funded? Can we have an update on Old Road, Bay Road project? It's difficult to see at evenings. What's the difference between, well, I think you mentioned that in terms of the salary scaling. The nursing council, I've never heard of that before. What's the construction? What's the roles and responsibilities? Who makes up that body? On the water issue in Keon, can the results of these tests be made public? Regarding the water issue as well, former PM Harris mentioned at his previous press conference, 2 weeks ago, that he paid $600,000 US to BEAD. I don't know how that ties into the explanation you gave with the 5 years of no work being done and stuff like that. So can you clarify that gap? I don't know if you could speak specifically to that money, but
I will clarify that gap. Just because I spoke so much about water and there's a lingering question. And I will speak to the 250. The others, I will be able to maybe send you, and you can probably send in some questions. Okay, no problem.
Regarding private schools or private children being part of the 250 program, what criteria has to be met if it's a needs basis? UE and economic cost for online students, it's burning some persons. Even myself being an online student, it was difficult to get through at Development Bank. I have no guarantor. My people don't have collateral like that. Everybody is recovering from COVID. I can ask somebody, hey, can you sign this for me? So what about those persons in such situations? And the one I'd want you to answer is the resumption of CET. There has been some talk or so that it's coming in October. If it is, will that be placed on goods already on the island? And how would we navigate that? I know you said you're trying to bring down the cost of food and stuff like that, but then would that increase the price for food?
Right. So with respect to the CET, when we look at the cost of food, we have put a cost of living task force together. And I want to say in principle, nothing will be done to increase the cost of food. Whatever is done will be to decrease the cost of food. I want to say that from the onset. So when that evaluation is done at that particular time, we are committed, of course, in principle, to what the CARICOM is seeking to achieve. We are part of it. We have signed on to it. Remember, the CET affects certain goods that are from outside the region. It wouldn't affect goods that are produced inside the region, of course, right? So, and we will look at it, and then we will determine if this would affect the cost of living and the cost at which people buy food. If this is the right moment, not the right moment. We are seeking to comply with the laws, but under the special circumstances that we're going, we will evaluate that as well. So, right, so there's no, I cannot say that there's a start date, right? There might be a presumptive start date, but that has conditions in the sense that how would it affect the overall cost of living for our people, all right? And that is why nothing has been done. With respect to UN economic costs online, I want to thank you for your question. We have done a lot by expanding economic costs, low interest, and we could not have done everything on one go. But the principle is we have significantly improved the opportunities for people to study. With the low interest loan, two things you mentioned, the guarantor, and you also mentioned the online. So those things are being studied as well, right? So what we have done with the student loan is that when you get it and you are aware, you don't have to pay any interest at all during the time that you're studying unless you choose it. Because the bank should not be charging you interest. Before you had to pay interest while you are studying. That was one, but we freeze the interest and we're going to forgive you the interest that would have accumulated during that time. The economic cost for on-campus students. We are looking at how else can we better the situation. So we have not come to the end of the road. In the first year, we have made significant strides and we'll continue to work to see how we can make it even more open for persons who don't have a lot of financial resources can get to university. One of it, you get to UE. The other is can you get a scholarship to another area? But we believe we will do more work on this as we go forward. So you'll see more work done on that. With the private preschools, once they make the application through, they will go through, the private children, right? They will make the application, right? And then social services with education will become involved. Look, this is a parent based on the criteria that we have. They have the criteria that they have, but of course, the number one thing is that this parent is struggling, don't have financial resources, and they need the help. For example, in my own situation, I have a son. I don't think I should be receiving $250 for him. But I believe that $250 should go to a next child. I should not have access to that, right? And there are a lot of persons in that situation who can do without the access for that. But I also admit that there might be some among them who might need the help. So give them the access if they don't have the financial resources. So the bottom line is financial resources at that particular time, okay? Now, the other thing you asked about, the $600,000, as I told you, once this whole government was collapsing and they realized water was going to be an issue in Cayon, they rushed to say, let's see if BEAD can work again. You had 7 years. You had 7 years to get this thing done. No political will to get it done. Again, it was a political gimmick to see how you could do something when you know that would not have been possible in that time because you had to go fix the machinery and all of that. It was a political talking point because you know you failed the people of Cayon for those last 6 to 7 years. And then in the last now, when I was speaking about water on the platform in an effort to say I addressed the issue, call BEAD and let's see if we can get some money to BEAD, knowing that you will not deliver any water to Cayon because it was not high on the political agenda because you were there for a full term and did absolutely nothing. With respect to the results, the results have to be made public because people must know that the water is potable. So BEAD has an obligation to make the results public. With respect to the $250, as I said, it's for every child. There was a glitch in the system. I want to tell the parents out there, it's $250 every child. We I apologize for the inconvenience of the IT glitch. This is IT years. We are implementing IT as far as possible, but there are glitches at times. So you can really apply for each child. And a press release was done by the press secretary to inform our people of how we can access that. So yes, you can access the $250 per child. So if you have 3 children, right, so the funding is coming from the government as part of our safety net approach. Yes, we know that mothers and fathers and families are being affected, difficulties in getting their children back to school. And so this is one of our safety net approaches delivered to help our children to get back to school. All right.
Clarification. You mentioned the cabinet had agreed to or approved about $2 million for the desalination plant.
We had approved a 2 million gallon.
Oh, 2 million gallon plant. Is this the same desalination plant that is being spoken of by the previous administration coming from Saudi Arabia or something like that? Two separate issues?
2 separate issues. There is one coming from the UAE.
Oh, UAE.
Yeah, which is 30,000 gallon, a small amount, that is supposed to be delivered with renewable energy. That is not going to make a dent really anywhere. But they delivered them. If you could get extra 30,000, you take it. But that is separate and apart. We want real solution. That will not even seek to solve the problem. But of course, if you get one full basket, as we say in St. Kitts and Nevis, and so that is there. But that was not going to solve the problem, not even make a significant dent in the problem. We need millions of gallons more per day to be delivered in order to solve the problem. $2 million plant, 500,000 more from there, 700,000 to a million from Keon, going back to Shadwell to seek to fix it, which is another 400,000 to 500,000 gallons, and drilling other places around the country. So we want to look at all these sources so that we can have the millions per day. This is 30,000. We're talking about millions per day needed. That's just a drop in the bucket, really. So anybody talking about the UAE project as a solution to the water issues that we have is really selling, what I would say, I don't know, something that is not worth its value. However, we appreciate what the UAE is doing, even though it's a small amount to our sources.
Okay. Thank you very much to the media houses for coming out and engaging with the Prime Minister at this episode of the Roundtable. At this point, we'll have the Prime Minister give his closing remarks, if he has any, before we close out the program.
Right, so I will thank you, Press Secretary. I will thank the media houses. I think that 5 look like it can work so that we can dialogue and not have a press conference type approach so that you can follow up a question and follow up a question, so that we can get to the depth of the matters. I think that is the way we can get the information out as well. I want to thank the people of St. Kitts and Nevis who have joined us today, our citizens, to this round table, listening to the pertinent issues and the information given. It's always a pleasure when I can communicate with our people, even through the media houses. So I want to say to the people that St. Kitts and Nevis is on a path of stability. We had to stabilize the economy, stabilize many sectors and so forth. Are there challenges? There will always be challenges, but we are up to face the challenges that we are dealing with. There are issues that people are complaining of when it comes to civil service delivery. These are not new issues, but what we are seeking to do is to go through training for our civil service. And in short order, we want to set up something similar to an institute where all civil servants have to go for training and continue training. And so we'll start the deliberation and discussions so that before you come into the service, you have training to do. While you're in the service, you have training to do so that you can deliver the services of the government to the people in an efficient, compassionate, and respectful manner. And therefore, that is what we are working towards. We hear the cries of the people. This has been a long-standing matter, but we would not allow the matter to go unaddressed. And therefore, I want the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to do that. So as we continue to recover, we expect this tourist season to bounce back. We will start in earnest the projects that we have in the pipeline, which have to go through procurement and so forth, so that we can produce more construction jobs for our people. And therefore, the horizon, there's a lot of hope as we move forward to independence. 40, as the economy recovers, opportunities for jobs to be created, and we are seeking to do new industry. So I say to all of our people, hope is always with this administration. We will make sure that we work tirelessly hard on your behalf. Thank you very much. Okay, that's it.
Thank you very much again for tuning in. This was the Roundtable. Thank you. Sorry for tuning in. This is a roundtable, a special interview with the Prime Minister. We have a continuous rotation of media houses through the Media Association of St. Kitts and Nevis. Today we had 3 new faces, which is a good thing. We welcome that, and we look forward to having you again next month at the next episode of the Roundtable. Thank you to Mrs. Lanicia Collins-Williams, the sign language interpreter, for coming out and assisting us today. Thanks again for tuning in.
What's the matter?